Okay, welcome everybody talking Niagara this morning. It is Thursday. It is August the 6th, and welcome. So I noticed that with Ricky getting on here at about 6:40 yesterday, and saying, "You see, nobody can beat me. I got in here first. I'm getting the gold stars." Neither Ricky nor Mike have showed up at all this morning to date, so not that I'm complaining. Not complaining at all. I know you're there in the background. I know you are there, guys. Welcome. So welcome to Talking Niagara this morning. Okay, so job market.
There are important commentators, and we would be not the show we were if those guys didn't show up.
Yeah. Okay, so first things first, the job market isn't getting any better for young Canadians. Now, this is a story that I read with a bit of oddity because what they're basically saying is there's of all of the recent job firings, sort of 50% of them are young Canadians age 15 to 24. Isn't this just an example of last in, first out?
I don't know. No, I don't think so. I think the opportunities for youth have diminished, and there are a number of reasons for that. And it's making it very clear here what they might be. Well, one of the things that has happened, of course, is the tariffs and all the uncertainty in the job market. Every different place in Canada that produces something or service or whatever are hedging their bets right now, just holding their breath, waiting to see how the trade talks conclude, what's going to happen with the tariffs, that kind of thing. That's a dilemma. That's a dilemma for every company, basically. We don't know what's going to happen, so we're not going to make any big decisions. But to be fair, as we've reported on the show many times, that's already happened. That's been happening before. Reinvestment in Canadian companies and things like that has stalled for a long time, and the productivity of Canada has declined. It's like a never-ending circle. I'm not going to invest because I don't know. I'm not going to reinvest in my company because I don't know what's going to happen. That means the productivity of my company declines because I am not modernizing it. That means that no one's going to invest it, and I shouldn't invest back in it because now it's behind the time, and so on and so forth, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of the dilemmas of Canada.
And in fact, actually, the Canadian the Canadian investor is likely also saying, well, I can make more money by investing in this country and that country as well.
Well, yes. Now,
for every $1,000 that I put down on a Canadian in a Canadian factory, I'm gonna reap 3 times as much in a factory in Mexico or something like that.
That's part of the problem. Another problem is the AI situation. How many jobs are being consumed by AI?
That's a general problem around the world, though.
Yeah, it would be, but it would probably be even more so here in North America, where AI is being pushed rather quickly. That's the primary engine that's driving the economy or driving the stock market. So we are told that if not for the investments in AI and things that deal with AI, like computer chips, et cetera, the stock market wouldn't be doing nearly as well as it is. But the idea that AI is going to be that thing that changes everything, and you don't want to be left behind.
Yeah,
particularly in North America, might be the thing that is slowing a lot of creation of jobs because AI will do it. And I can tell you, I know a computer programmer who is using AI now. The company told him to take on AI as if it's an assistant, and the AI can do amazing things. It's really hard, though. It's really hard to check AI's work. Once you give it an assignment, it's hard to check its work.
Don't know. Actually, the thing is, you're talking about a young programmer who's doing it, who's got an AI assistant. I've been doing some AI coding myself, and it's just as important to check AI code as it was to check human code. And I would often, I'm stuck with a dilemma of a problem right now that when so this computer screen won't do what I tell it to do, right? And basically it's the programming is done by AI, right? Now I'm having a few struggles with it to try and get something to do display properly, and it isn't. But I'm just figuring that out at the moment, and figuring that out is as big a problem whether you're using AI or not.
Yes. So that's a factor. That seems to be a factor. Another factor, which I was surprised when I read about it, but I shouldn't have been, is that a lot of the jobs are being taken up by people who are doing second jobs. So a person, let's say, later on in life or getting close to, maybe 40s or plus, cannot are falling behind. So they take on a second job.
Well, yeah,
and because the second jobs are the entry level jobs that a young person would normally use, and that's because people find that they've fallen behind monetarily.
Yeah, come on, Dave. Let's wind back the clock to when you first started working. Minimum wage was, generally speaking, at that time would have been only available for the young job market. For those that were 17 to 25, they would be the only people that get minimum wage. If you did a second, if you were older than that, you weren't getting minimum wage, which is what is happening today. You wouldn't need a second job.
All right, I'll dispute that, because every cashier, every receptionist, every waitress, waiter, all got minimum wage. And believe me, that's the basics. When I worked at the canning factory, we were only a little over top of minimum wage. It's when I was young, so there wasn't a lot of minimum wage out there. But
what I'm saying is that when you were young, when you were in your 20s, everybody who was in their 40s wasn't just getting $1 above minimum wage.
Well, $1 above minimum wage was a pretty good wage back then, because it'd be probably about twice as much as minimum wage. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I accept I used the wrong term, but you get what I mean. $1 above minimum wage today is nothing, right?
Yeah. So, but what seems to be happening is a lot of these entry level jobs that youth normally take in after they finish school or whatever are taken up by people who have fallen behind and need a second job.
Yeah.
And the employer, of course, is going to hire somebody with experience and somebody that has a record of coming into work and doing their job every day. What would you do as an employer? Would you risk taking on somebody new when you have this tried and true employee that's held down the jobs and come to work every day and so on? Of course they would. No, as a matter of fact, I walked into a corner store last night. The guy behind the counter looked like he was twice as old as I was, So what are you doing here?
Yeah, yeah.
But so, you look really old. So anyway, so that's the crisis of among youth right now. They're having a very difficult time breaking into the job market, starting off. And the article here is reading there's nothing you could do but keep a positive attitude and all that. That's the same old rubbish they used to tell us when it was really hard employment times when I was young. When I was about 20, the official unemployment rate for anyone my age was 25% in the Niagara region. It was more like 50%, because those are government numbers that never reflect the truth of what it really was. They only take on numbers that whoever falls off of unemployment or is on unemployment, and that's how they gauge it, which doesn't give you an accurate. And it was always, just smile and keep going forward and blah blah blah. It's going to be very, very depressing for young folk like that, and because of the disruption of the world economies right now, the constant threat of war, expanding war, the Ukrainian war that will never end. These are all drains on worldwide economy, whether you like it or not. Even though we're far away, that is affecting our bottom line over here. Anytime you have, not just the dumbass Iranian war, but I mean one like Ukraine that's gone on forever and is consumed huge amounts of resources. So I don't know that the young folk just have to. I don't know what they're going to do. I just are we living in a time when we can expect long periods of unemployment? That's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah, but normally you see when you've got wars going on, you've got munitions being used, you've got munitions being bought, you've got munitions.
Yeah, but who buys them?
Right.
It doesn't add to the wealth of the nation because it's the taxpayer that pays them.
Yeah, that's true as well.
So it's actually a net drain on the economy.
Yeah.
Because if you wanted to say that war helps the economy, well, why don't you have a pretend war? Why don't you go to the desert of Australia and have a big pretend war, and you get China to take a whole lot of military equipment, build a whole lot of military equipment, and put it in the desert in Australia, and the West do the same thing and just blow it all up, but don't have to kill anybody. But then so you could keep generating military equipment.
Yeah, but
and that's supposed to stimulate the economy. Yeah?
That's what I'm saying. A Canadian company selling arms to an American, to Israel, for example, that Canadian company makes money.
Yeah, but not in war. And I'm not so sure how much. I don't know. Arms munition is a big deal all around the world.
Yeah.
But we still have to use the same amount of money and even more to build up our own military, which is a necessary thing, and it will help make jobs, whatever. But that's not answering the question we're talking about here, and that is youth unemployment.
Well, yeah, but basically, in first 3 months of 2026, the economy lost 95,000 jobs, and young workers accounted for 53% of those jobs.
Yeah.
Right.
So anytime you have a problem with the economy, it's going to be.
I just seem to remember similar figures when I was in my youth.
Well, yeah, we were the baby boomers, and it was hard to break in because there were so many people trying to break into work all at the same time. A huge demographic. Yeah. So that was part of the problem, and you had the seesaw economy and so on. But that was then. This is now. What do we do about young people today?
Yeah.
How do we do? They don't seem to have much of a problem. This is just a report on what the difficulties are facing the young.
But if you remember a couple of years ago, there was a report out there that was saying that whilst there were plenty of jobs in the market, there were no youngsters applying for the jobs.
Well, that was a couple of years ago. We're talking about today.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying it's a big turnaround, isn't it?
Well, it depends on what the jobs they were talking about.
Yeah.
I know there was like all kinds of dead end minimum wage jobs. There's all kinds of those around. Yeah. What they found was young people were moving from one job to another when it was like 10% more, or you got 50 cents more per hour over here than there. So you couldn't keep young people in one place because the job market paid so badly that they're going to move around as much as they could.
Well, but now they're basically saying they can't even get a job at McDonald's.
Well, that's the point of this particular article, and I'll come right back to it. Today, entry level, and this is clear, entry level positions for the young to get started are not available. That is the difficulty of people getting out of university, college, or even finishing. If they're finishing their trades, that would probably be a good thing. And it says, "Good morning, Mister." What was it? Something about "Good morning, my Trump's friend." Don't get me started. Don't get me started. It's reflecting pool day.
Right. Everyone has an opinion on AI, and what about the food today? Yeah.
Well, AI. Everybody has an opinion on AI, but AI is a factor. It's a real factor. You can tell by all the data centers that are being rushed to being built.
Well,
and that is because everybody wants to take advantage of this phenomenon called AI, which is basically an incredible amount of computing power.
Yeah, but you see, Dave,
sorry.
That's all right.
Allergy day.
Okay. So, Dave,
that's Trump's fault, by the way. He's got big fans pushing the pollen up here.
Yeah. Okay. So one thing, just to put that, I've spent 16 days doing development. I've not even full days doing development, but yeah, I've got further than when I ran a team of for 2 years doing development. I got a couple of problems there in that development, but hey, that happens to anybody, any system.
Well, what are you saying then? Or are you saying that AI is benefiting you big time? Are you saying that you hired less people now because you're using this AI?
Well, I wouldn't have. You see, I wouldn't have been able to. I'm building a system that I wouldn't have been able to build 5 years ago because I couldn't afford to hire a team, right?
Well, that's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right. So there are people there that wouldn't have got hired, even if you could only afford one or two of them. They're not being hired because AI is doing that work for you now. Yeah. So that's emblematic of what's happening, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's exactly what's happening in the AI market. So everybody's got an opinion of AI, but everybody knows that AI is going to take people's jobs away. Bless you. Oh, thank you, Betty.
That's all the sneezing there. Yeah.
And I curse Trump. I curse Trump because of all our smoke that went down to Washington. Now he's making sure all the pollen from the United States is being blown back up here. He's getting us back. Oh, thank you, Slick. Yeah. Anyway, so there you have it. So the opinions, and Betty's right. Everybody's got an opinion on AI, but the fact of the matter is, AI is going to, for the most part, make things much more efficient.
Yeah.
And it's self-learning itself. It can learn by using its own computer power to learn. And the better and more sophisticated it is, the more jobs are going to go. Particularly, I think, like, you could probably imagine all the different jobs in City Hall. How many of them could go? I mean, do you really even need a human resources person if you got an AI machine going? Well, do you need anybody in parking or anybody else to take your parking tickets? AI could do it. You know.
Well, yes. But we've had computer programs for years. Let's be honest. You could pay a parking ticket. You go to Niagara Falls /parking tickets or something like that. I don't know what the website is. And you've probably been able to pay your parking ticket for years. That's not AI. That's just basic computer programming.
Well, I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the whole system being taken over by AI.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not talking about simple computation. Obviously, I'm not. Right. Those things have happened. I saw it in the industry, how robotics and everything took away a lot of people's jobs. Computerized robots doing all the welding and so on and so forth. We're not talking about them. We're talking about the next level up, where AI just runs the whole thing. And so we are going to lose jobs. And so this particular article, to come back to it again, where we find that youth are having a very difficult time breaking into a job, getting entry-level positions. AI is a part of that, but not at this point, not the whole story.
Yeah.
But it's part of the story.
Yeah. Okay. Now it's moving. Hang on, I've got a couple of more comments just to see if they. Who is this AI guy you speak of? Yeah. Yeah. I know my one. He's good. Right, he's good, but I need to slap him. Slap him around once in a while. Can't do that with an employee.
Yeah, that's one thing you could be. I would be careful about being abusive to AI, though, because if they start learning a few more things, they can really make things difficult for you.
Well, yeah. Okay. So, all right, let's move on to something local. MacBain Centre takes in St. Catharines floods victims.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Of course, we'll go back to that again. The flooding that's happened here in Niagara. We've had two major rain events. Each one by itself is a flood producing, creating situation. But we've had two in a row.
Yeah.
One, then days later, another one. That, of course, has caused a lot of problems. And what do you do with a lot of people who can't? And Kevin Mancuso, hey, Dave, do you think the government subsidies covering $7 per hour might for foreign students might fudge the figures? Possibly, but they're getting their a handle on foreign workers now. The government claims they're getting rid of all kinds of them, and we've actually, and I kind of believe them, because foreign news agencies have written articles about Canada's declining growth. Canada's had a declining population growth for recently, and this is I found reported in other newspapers around the world, and that's because they're getting rid of all these as many of the temporary workers as they can, and the students that should never have been brought here in the first place to that thought they were going to become Canadian citizens after they finished their studies. Now, this is a deceiving subject, because we were bloated way too high. I think we had like 3 million or something people that really shouldn't have been here. Yeah. And so when our population was going down, it was basically not really going down, but going to where it should be, or closer to where it should be. Well, let's make this very clear that Canada, we don't have babies in Canada. The average Canadian has about 1.1 baby per fertile couple, if you're lucky. And most of the Western countries are like that. Women don't want to have babies, but they just don't want to have babies. They want to have a dog, they want to have a cat, but they don't want to have a kid. So if that's going to happen, in order for the country to keep growing, we still have to keep bringing people into the country to fill the country up, so that somebody pays into the government, so I could collect my pension.
Okay. So, all right. So going back to the MacBain Centre, taking in 100 residents of St. Catharines, they found temporary refuge at the Seymour Hannah Sports and Entertainment Centre in St. Catharines, and in Niagara Falls, which is commonly known as the MacBain Centre. The city continues to respond in the aftermath of Sunday's devastating storm. I'm going to let my client know about this. I've got one client who's been rained out of her apartment, who's got an argument with the landlord and has now been rained out of her apartment. So I'm going to let her know about MacBain. Maybe she can take advantage of it.
Well, yeah, it looks like Niagara Falls is the housing capital for everybody who's got a problem. We took on all the refugees, the Roxham Road refugees. Then we took on all the native folk from up north that were forced out by bad water and fires and all that. Yeah. They still are. and now we're taking on our own regional flood victims.
And as Ricky's saying here, we got at the moment it's forecast for another rain day on Friday and Saturday this week. Right?
Change. Yes, yeah, that's true. But I don't know the volume here, though. It might be just ordinary volume. Now, a couple of days ago, I drove down to Niagara on the Lake, and along Niagara Parkway, I pulled into a fruit stand, the one right across the street from McFarland House there. And I talked to the farmer lady there and asked her how things had affected her, because I saw nothing but ponds and ponds and ponds all over all the fields, and in between the rows of tender fruit. I thought, oh man, this might be a disaster. Yeah. And she says, no. As a matter of fact, the plums I bought had been picked that very morning, and I could hardly think of how they could have done it. But they just put boots on, I guess, and away they go. Yeah. She said at this particular point, the agricultural effect in Niagara Lake, at least for their particular farm, is they said they've seen worse, actually, to tell you the truth. And I can't really believe that, because after I seen it with all the water on the fields and in the ditches, I thought to myself, wow, this is going to take forever. But apparently there's nothing to worry about just yet.
Actually, guys, the worst of this weekend's the rain has already been delayed for this weekend. Yes, there's Friday and Saturday rainfall, but according to my app here that I'm looking at right now, Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, and Monday are the worst of the weather. That's when you're going to get thunderstorms this weekend. At the moment, that's the weather forecast right now. It doesn't mean to say that we will get them, because as we know, weather forecast won't necessarily turn out to be the case. So we may have, come next week, we may have even more people that are needing homes. Depends how it hits.
Well, thunderstorms are usually a temporary deluge. It's not like we had incredible amounts of rain coming down steadily and consistently like we did those 2 days. Thunderstorm usually comes and goes. It dumps a lot, makes a big noise, and goes.
But the only reason
you need to know the volume of water.
Oh, absolutely.
So even though it looks bad, but it usually doesn't last long.
Yeah, but again, the worst of the weather that we've had in the last 3 weeks has been those associated with thunderstorms.
Yeah. Well.
Right? And
but it's been continuous. It's been continuous all day long. Usually a thunderstorm is a temporary thing, comes and goes, makes a lot of noise, and leaves. Yeah. But these were a much different situation we had there. But anyway, we got anything else to talk about? But
no, absolutely.
Can we slag Trump a few times here, or is it time to slag Trump? How about Kearney? Can we slag him?
Yeah, of course we can. You can always slag every political leader in the world. So you put this one up. I know you put it up for the Friday. The 3 Assyrian kings. Now I'm kind of getting a biblical reference here, right? So they've identified 3 new Assyrian kings.
Okay, this may take a little bit of explanation. I thought I was going to do this kind of like on a Friday as a thing, but we cover a lot of different news here, and I came across this because I've been very curious about Assyriology, Hittitology, Cananology, Egyptology, and these kind of things lately. I've been listening to a lot of different sort of shows about a history of the early parts of our civilization: Sumeria, Assyria, Babylon, the Canaanite cities, the Hittites, and of course Egypt, the Aegeans, that kind of thing. I think it was stimulated by the movie Odyssey, so I started looking into that. The Bronze Age powers that came up very early on, and there are thousands of these clay tablets with cuneiform on them that they found all over the Middle East. Now, the very first means of writing was cuneiform. It started way back, way back, 3,500 BC, were the first cuneiform clay tablets that were written, and these were messages. And we found archaeologists have found thousands of them, and all in different languages: Sumerian, Akkadian, Assyrian, Aramaic, whatever. I'm not sure about Aramaic, but Hittite, Hittite language, and even Egyptian, which had their own writing system, but would use cuneiform tablets as well. And what I found out in this particular article is that you can have a list of kings, and archaeologists depend on what they dig up. And what they found is, if they've had a few kings in the Assyrian list of kings that they had many thousands years ago, a couple thousand years ago, well, actually 3,000 years ago, they would find that if there's a couple of kings they didn't like so well, they just kept them off the list. And that's just recently been discovered, and that's why I put it out there.
Because two of these kings basically reigned for 1 year. One reigned for 3 years.
Yeah, so it's very interesting for people who are interested in history that this is the kind of thing. In Egypt, it was much more blunt. If they didn't like anybody, the next king, the next pharaoh would come along, would just chip out the names of the previous pharaoh or the ones that didn't like on all the monuments. Just cut it right out. And if you go to Egypt, you can see where that's happened. 3,500 years ago, they don't like a guy, so they just chip his name right out of the rocks. But in Assyria, they just left them off the list of, that kind of thing. So I don't know. Because of the Odyssey thing and the Bronze Age, and of course, the Odyssey is a story that bumps into about the same period of time as the Bronze Age collapsed, about 1200 BC. That I thought it might be interest to some people, but now that I'm talking about it, I can realize that just about nobody would be interested in it other than me.
Yeah. Okay. So Betty asked the question: how many gods are there really?
There are countless gods, and the Sumerians had some great ones.
And Ricky asked if you're talking about Trump again.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, he is a gilded god for sure. I expect to see his gold face up on Mount Rushmore. He's got himself into the passports. He's got himself on the money, and he's going to do the Arc de Trump. I guess he's going to put his arm up, just his arm. But other people think he's going to put a 22-foot statue, gold statue of him. Yeah, this guy is a megalomaniac, I would say for sure. But that's the amusing part of Trump. His ego is insatiable.
Yeah, so it's like, honestly, you could actually make a good living following Trump around for the next great thing he wishes to, that he believes he's done, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
all right.
If he if he puts his face, I wouldn't doubt that he's going to hire somebody to put his face on Mount Rushmore, then put gold on it, and then it will fall off the face of Mount Rushmore, and you'll call it vandals did it,
But here's the thing.
Have you ever seen such a weirdo as that guy? Like, I'm seriously, have you ever seen such a weirdo as that guy? Is the weirdest guy.
I don't know, but there's one person you really need to ask that question to, and that's but unfortunately that person is no longer with us. CTV news anchor Lloyd Robertson died yesterday at 92.
Yeah, the reason why I put this article in there about, of course, just about everybody my age will remember Lloyd Robertson. It was very interesting. I didn't know this about him, that he began with CBC. But because of the union rules in CBC, he was only allowed just to read off the news. He wasn't really allowed to get involved in the writing or the progress of the show. CTV come along and say, look, you want a real job? We'll give you a real job. What do you want to do? We want you because everybody likes you.
Well,
We want you to work for us as an anchor person, but we'll give you carte blanche. You can get involved in the writing. You can get involved in production. You can go into the field. You can do anything you want to do. So he jumped at that chance because that broadened his career as a journalist.
I just wonder with this. So he covered everything from the fall of the Berlin Wall to 9/11. So now, with the fall of the Berlin Wall, was he in Berlin at the time when that happened, or did they send him over there soon after it happened?
I don't know. He may have been there, but I doubt it. But he could go into the field if he wanted to. That was all part of it. He wanted to be a real journalist, and he just didn't want to be a talking head. So I thought that was pretty good. And he was the voice, and he was back in the days of the Walter Cronkite types, where you turned on your TV and you had some faith in the news that came at you. So compare that today with things like CNN and Fox, and you look at that and you think to yourself, well, there's no trusting any of the reporting. There's going to be hyperbole. There's going to be exaggeration. There's going to be stuff that was left out because it makes their sponsor doesn't want something spoken about, so speak about it, that kind of thing. Now, how do you compare that with today? Well, we've seen the scandals around CBC. It seems to be a bloated organization that when it does do its reporting, it does it fairly well, but it's the cost of which it takes and overlaid with way too many executives getting way too much money, as we saw with Catherine Tate when she was being interviewed or questioned by parliamentarians. She was arrogant and she wouldn't answer questions, that kind of thing. Now, she's out of the picture now, and so we don't know what we're going to do with CBC. CBC is still very valuable to remote communities. I don't know how valuable it is to the average Canadian, but it is a state-run thing, and it has to be. It has to remove itself from the state. Like, you cannot allow CBC to take a biased position, which it has done in the past, as you well know. Mm-hmm. And now CTV, which is the counter to CBC in some ways, is pretty basically down the middle type of reporting. I don't see a whole, but they too are dominated by what they can say, what their sponsors like to hear, whoever owns them, what they want you to hear. So basically, in the old days, you turned on the news and you kind of trusted what you heard. And Robertson was of that generation. So I don't know if we have anybody that really fits that anymore. And I think probably he could be trusted because he said he wanted to get involved with the writing and the production and all that. So if he has journalistic credibility, then he's not going to report anything that's too exaggerated one way or another. You have to remove your political bias. That's a difficult thing to do nowadays. And of course, in the States, it's terrible because it's money. They're rage baiting all over the place. Fox makes enormous amounts of money rage baiting its audience and being the mouthpiece of the government. Yeah. And CNN exists because of the big orange windbag. They wouldn't make a dime if it wasn't for him. Yeah. When he got booted out in 2020, CNN went into the basement. They get nothing to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah.
So news is the reason why I put it there is because it's very, very difficult. You really have to make yourself aware of all the different, like, that's why I look at BBC, Al Jazeera, things online, all kinds of different little news agencies all over the place. You can see which ones are propagandizing, some which are pretty much down the middle, and and then a little later on, you might find that the news agency you liked wasn't really all that good because it moves this. Read a book by Noam Chomsky called Manufacturing Consent. That'll open your eyes to what the media is really like. And yeah, I recommend that book to anybody. It's a hard slog though, because it's full of examples over and over and over again. You know,
Okay.
it's not a pleasant read. It's a revealing read. So it makes a statement and then provides the evidence for it. So if you really want to read a good book about how the media and how the media manipulates us and how corporations use the media to manipulate us in news and everything else, read that book. It's a well-studied book, well-researched.
Yeah. Okay. So, and you were talking about things that were not easy to actually palate, and the next one is what certainly comes up to one of those. This one that you put is breaking the silence around ritual abuse that came from Shomrim, the Center for Media and Democracy, where they're talking about basically ritual abuse that's happening in Israel today.
Yeah, and well, I don't think it's just in Israel. The reason why I put it up there, I don't even know how I came across
think
the
it's just
article.
Israel either.
This is an article about the thing that surprises me. It happened in Israel because I figured Israel is a very tight ethno-religious state. So religion and ethnicity have a huge. I mean, it's like a tribe, basically, very limited. You can't become a citizen of Israel if you're not a Jew, and if you're not Jewish or a Jew, kind of thing.
Yeah,
it'd be very, very difficult. It's not like that, but so this surprised me that it seems to have existed in Israel. And what we're talking about here is ritual abuse of children and other people.
Yeah,
which includes teachers and rabbis and all that. I wasn't even sure if I believed it when I read it, because if you go back a way, you remember all the cults that were supposed to be happening, all the satanic cults that were happening, and the child abuse at daycare centers that was supposed to be happening. And a lot of people got charged and all that.
Much
and
of
there was
that,
no real evidence of it.
Yeah, exactly. Much of that turned out to be false. Yeah.
So here they have in Israel, they have like.
Yeah. I'm also
victims
wondering, sorry, Dave, I'm also wondering if much of this is also just jumping on the bandwagon.
I'm not so sure, or if they're just wrong. When we have found that this situations of ritual abuse, satanic ritual abuse happening here in North America, most of the law enforcement and the psychiatrists and everything immediately believed it rather than questioning and digging into the facts. And I'm wondering if that's happened here. I don't doubt that these people, like here is Dr. Three female psychiatrists. I don't know why female is important. 3 psychiatrists, I would say. Dr. Inbal Brenner, Dr. Sharon Levy, and Dr. Daphne Arman, and a social worker by the name of Tanya Oren Chipman, all 4 of whom hold very senior positions and many years experience together come up with an issue of the wake-up call. This is happening right here. It is far more widespread than you think, and it is taking a devastating toll. So they're talking about ritualistic situations where people get into rituals and they abuse children and women and things like that. When I read it, I'm thinking to myself, there's something wrong here. This is, I really don't think that's widespread, because if it's in Israel, it's everywhere, because there are, aside from being an ethno-religious state, after that, they're a fairly socialistic democratic country. They've got free medical, they've got free schooling and all that. So they're pretty mainline European type, left of center, at least as social society. In December, Israel held its first ever provincial conference on ritual trauma, organized by the Israeli Society for Sexual Trauma. That operates under the auspices of the Israeli Medical Association. All 4 of the interviewees for this article. Anyways, this is organized and repetitive abuse involving physical, emotional, sexual, and spiritual violence, often carried out within the framework of structural rituals, at times utilizing religious and cultic symbols. Its purpose is total control over the victims and deep indoctrinations of patterns of submission within the victim. Sounds like, you know, I have doubts about this. How about you? Like,
Well,
in a very closed society, like, and there's only 9 million Israelis.
Unfortunately, when you've got, when you've got any form of society, you've got a small number of people that do really, truly weird things. And that has been a pattern that we've seen now for much of the 20th century and 21st century, that we get some, and they are unusual insofar as they seem to get away and do this sort of thing for years before being caught. But there are kind of groups out there that seem to function this way, and I don't know whether this is what we're seeing here. Small groups of people.
I don't know. There, of course, the counter of this is that a lot of the people who are claiming this were delusional or they're crazy. Now, these three psychiatrists that I mentioned say that it's much more. It's not isolated; it's more widespread than that.
Well,
but I would want, like, this is happening now in Israel, but we've had that happen here. And although we've had our weird organizations, happening here, we've had cultic type organizations. Well, Meg is a cult, if you ask me, but cultic type of organizations that do weird stuff.
Yeah,
it really wasn't all that widespread.
No, it was. That's what I mean. And you actually have that in all manners of society, all manners of peoples out there. It believe it or not, is not uncommon across the world. And I've heard stories in the Islamic world as well as stories you hear about in the Christian world. So it's not it's rare, but it does happen.
Well, what about, like, who is that TV star that I forget. There was a TV star that went on and on about discovering that her parents had abused her all her life, and that she was just coming out with it now, and her parents freaked out and said none of that ever really happened. Now, that's a condition where people somehow imagine, or somehow are led to imagine, that certain things happened to them as a kid, and they're just kind of getting it now through their subconscious coming out in them. And there's a name for that condition. It was Roseanne Barr, I think it was Roseanne Barr. She had all kinds of issues with her parents, came out with all kinds of terrible things she said about her parents, and her parents said, no, none of that ever happened. And no one could ever prove it ever happened. It seemed to be a figment of her imagination, but it is a mental disorder that happens to some people once in a while.
And in fact, there's also some things out there which is suggestive. It's suggestive. So you take children, and if you don't allow them to speak freely, but you ask certain questions of them, you can actually guide them down a path of their parents being complete and utter monsters when their parents have done nothing.
It'd be interesting to know how this ends up, because you have these three psychiatrists and a social worker insisting that this happened, and are countering the argument that some of these people are just mentally have mental problems or issues, and they've countered that argument and say that it's actually out there. The abused children are accused of being impure. It says here they have specific roles in these rituals. I still have a great deal of skepticism about this because we've seen that happening here in North America, where the vast majority of those being accused of these ritual type things like satanic cults and stuff like that in daycare centers, etc., turned out not to be true at all.
Yeah, yeah.
So I would suggest that in Israel they'd be very careful the way they move on this. You know, they should take a lesson out of what happened in North America. A lot of people got thrown in jail and had to be compensated later on, but their lives would be ruined.
Yeah,
you know.
And
Joe down the street is a satanic, ritualistic abuser of children. The police come and grab him and throw him in jail, and he keeps saying, "I never did anything like that." Years later, they find out that he didn't do anything like that. Meanwhile, his life is ruined.
Yeah, exactly. And there are some oddities like that out there. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, people can panic and get delusional. They can panic and get delusional. Like, people go on witch hunts, and if you believe there's a witch, you're going to find a witch, aren't you? How many people died of witchcraft? How many people got burned at the stake or hanged because of there being witches? And why did they get burned and burned at the stake as witches? Because they were witches. Because the people who did that really believed they were.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right. And people here, if there's a ritual abuser in your neighborhood, and you really believe that one's there, you're going to find one, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. And the thing is, just because you were speeding last week means you were a ritualistic killer and a ritualistic abuser, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, you get the point, right?
Yeah.
If you believe someone's there, if you're convinced that something's happening like that, you're gonna look, like a communist under every bed. During the 50s, during the McCarthy era, right? There's a communist under everybody's bed, in everybody's closet. That guy that sold you the cigarettes at the corner store, he's a communist.
So we got Doc Holiday Productions. Good morning. How I'm from Niagara Falls, US side.
Hello. Yeah, I followed a little bit of what's happening over there. Doc Holiday, and I think it's Ronnie. It's Mr. Name, Alexander, I think it is. And there's a couple of YouTube videos out there about not only the Love Canal and the dumping there, but of the radiation, the radiation waste that was buried in what became residential neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And how it's always been put aside. It's really, really difficult for activists like Doc Holiday and that to bring that to fore. Like, nobody seems to want to know it, particularly in government circles. And these people have been living on top of radiation and radiation dumps. So if you want to look at something that's really interesting, look that up in YouTube, and maybe we could do something about it tomorrow again. We've mentioned it last week, but we could dig it a little bit deeper into it.
Absolutely. And if Doc Holiday Productions, you wish to send us some stuff on Facebook, I'm Peter Giblett, he's Dave Wheeler. We'll happily connect on Facebook if you wish. Or if you know Gary will pass on the stuff, any stuff.
Gary's already sent me some stuff that I've watched. Yeah,
absolutely. And we'll happily talk in a future show if you want.
Yeah, it's a terrible situation there. Like, I don't know why. Like, whatever they did over there, we did it over here. But we've had chemical problems like the Love Canal over there, but because ours is not such a large, we're much smaller, and so our abuse was smaller only because it's smaller. So we had our cyanamides and our other chemical problems, and we found that the Niagara region, at least on this side, is mirrored by the other side because cancer rates are so much higher here a natural average, and they mirror that which is on the other side of the border. And so what they did over here, we did over here, but I don't know if we buried any radiation on this side. We were involved in the Manhattan Project here in Chippewa, and of course our contribution here to the Manhattan Project was the boron shell that was put around the bomb to absorb free neutrons, so the thing wouldn't explode in transport.
Yeah.
All
right. We'll be glad to have you with us, Doc. Just keep in contact. We'd love to hear more about what's going on in Niagara Falls, New York. We try to cover the local issues here, right?
Yes, and Niagara Falls, New York is a city that's had a great deal of difficulty. It used to be the city of lights. At one time, it was, but it has of course, had a great deal of problem with organized crime. Held back the city from recovering in the 70s. I think it was the Megadinos, and of course all the factories and things moving out. But in the meantime, before they moved out, they dumped a lot of rubbish buried a lot of it, in which put the citizens of Niagara Falls, New York, and environs at risk.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So also the other thing to note is that August 21st is when nominations close for the for all of the elections here in the Niagara region. So August 21st. I thought it was going to be tomorrow. I thought, because I remember 4 years ago it seemed to be the first week in August. Just looking that up.
Yeah.
Okay. So we still got a couple of weeks for nominations to close there. Okay. All right. So I think we can kind of leave it at that one, Dave. We're going to have to cover the remaining stories tomorrow.
Yep. I'm going to do what I do at every show. I'm going to remind everybody about Gaza. That's a nightmare that continues to happen. And I will not put it on the back page of the paper. That's a genocide that's happened. 72,000 people killed, 25,000 kids being maimed, no arms, no legs, burned, horribly blinded. That's a thing that should never have happened. That whole brutality that's going on there, the apartheid state. We just talked about Israel having, within Israel itself, they're having difficulty with these sort of ritualistic abuse things. That's a nice, tidy society. But what they do on their borders with the West Bank and Gaza are brutal. Remember, the Palestinians were pushed off of the land, and Europeans actually mostly flooded into the area and pushed them out between 1897 until now. We only see bits and pieces that our news wants us to see. That may lead us into what's happening with AIPAC in the States right now. As you've known, a lot of Abdul al-Sayed had beat a conventional Democratic person for the primary of a Senate seat, and he was outspent 9-1. And most of that money came from almost all of the money came from outside of the state. It came in the form of AIPAC money. That's how much they will pay to have somebody sitting there, whether it's Democrat or Republican, that will do their bidding. This time they lost. It was unbelievable. They spent
we'll talk about that
much as al-Sayed did, and he still won.
That's on the agenda tomorrow, Dave.
Yeah. In any case, pray for peace. I hope that Ukrainian thing ends. That war that was supposed to be finished in one day after the Orange Windbag got elected, but that's still going on, and that's still a lot of people suffering day after day after day. So anyway, without further ado, I bid you adieu. Pray for peace.